the skeptic I am. I can't believe you believe in that man. We disagree, but I still give a damn. Your guru assures if you follow his regimen, you will become a most excellent specimen. The power to live on and on for all days is right at your fingertips if someone pays.
My name is Peter Boghossian. I teach philosophy, and I've just written a forthcoming book entitled A Manual for Creating Atheists.
Of 1095, the device he uses sucks out the bad juices and leaves no bad bruises, it simply deduces.
So, I'll give you my approach.
Yeah.
So my approach is to give people tools of reasoning to help them weed out what's false. And by tools of reasoning, I don't just mean like little techniques and tricks like fallacies, etc., but ways to think about the very fabric of the belief engine, the mind. So ways in which they can change how they know what they know to make it more reliable and to be based on evidence. The problem is not that people lack any skill set. The problem is that people don't value it.
Sure.
It's not a question about skills, it's a question about values. And that's something that we often don't teach. I think the way that philosophy is institutionalized, it just depends on what you're interested in. So here's a way that it's very practical.
Okay.
I'll give you a couple ways it's practical. So ideally, you'd be able to think clearly, you'd be able to speak clearly, you'd be able to write clearly, and those skills translate into any arena that you want. The other thing is, I literally use it every day when I'm trying to figure something out. I'll ask myself some basic questions about the thing, and really there are no advanced, at least I don't think there are any advanced techniques in philosophy. I mean, there's logic and predicate logic and all that stuff, but in terms of living a practical life, I think that many of those tools we can take them in from a philosophy undergrad. People are doing some fascinating stuff in biology, and people are doing something with the fighting of intelligent design. People are doing some fascinating stuff in mathematics. In English, I heard this. I never even tweeted it. I never even heard of Shakespeare denialism. I mean, I heard of Shakespeare denialism, but I never knew that it was institutionalized.
Yeah.
There are actual programs that people.
I
just cannot imagine a more unproductive use of one's time.
You know what? I completely agree with you. I remember the first time, I want to say it came up like high school. Somebody said, well, we're not sure that Shakespeare. And what does it matter? Like, what?
See, okay, so that's the question, right? This is my opinion. The question is, there are over 1 billion people living on this planet a day who are living under don't even have $1 a day.
Right.
We have really serious climate problems. We have, I don't have to tell you about the problems of this country, infrastructure, and so I've always thought that philosophy should be used to improve the human condition, to make some contribution. I think that people look at philosophy and they think it's just something that, some kind of egghead sits in a bunker somewhere on a mountain and has a big beard and he writes something and 50 people read it. And unfortunately that stereotype is borne out in some cases. And that doesn't mean that we don't need people to think about these really esoteric things, but one of the things that the panel talked about today is how we can change promotion and tenure requirements to encourage people to do more work that matters in their community. So I try to do a lot of work in the community. So I work with prison inmates, and I've written and published about that. And we try to put critical thinking and reasoning programs in high school, and we're working with the Dawkins Foundation and the James Rennie Educational Foundation for community partnerships, or people who want to go on and advance reason. And because the other thing is that people in those introductory philosophy classes, my students, and I think this is true for most people, they're never going to have another philosophy class. They have one shot. So if anybody out there is an instructor or a professor or what have you, that's your shot, because those people will sit on juries, those people will vote. And in that sense, I think those introductory philosophy classes should be incredibly practical. And you can be practical and still engage really abstract, interesting concepts in a fun way. Yeah, so it's not only that they don't want their students, their kids to take philosophy class, but the students have come to me petrified that their audio will be found online, or they don't want it on their transcript. I got that for the science and pseudoscience. I have never had that for the critical thinking, but I definitely had that for the atheism class. When people would come up to me and say, I really want to take this class, but I just don't want it on my transcript. I'm afraid that a potential employer will see this and not. And I whatever you want to do. So I sign the audit forms, but there is a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of. I mean, it's a shame.
In your experience, are parents afraid that their kids are going to learn something?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's certainly the case that many. I don't know the answer to that question. Many students have come up to me, and it's certainly not an isolated student, and they've said my mom knew I was in here, I'd be in big trouble.
That's so bizarre.
Yeah, because it's a threat. It's like a way for the faith virus to protect itself or layer itself from any inoculation. See but that's why it's a value again, right? That's why it's not a skill set. It's not an issue of a skill set. That's the mistake that I think that's a big mistake to think that way. How do we change it so that reasoning and critical thinking and rationality become valued? And then how do we devalue things that people value? How do we devalue specious ways of reasoning, or just ways of reasoning that won't take one to the truth, that are just clearly false, like faith? Faith is just an unbelievably big problem.
But it's reinforced. Like with a sense of community. I mean, it's.
That's exactly right. When you look at the literature on cult accident, one of the things that when people are taken out of cults, it's because the I forget the exact wording, but something like the matrix is disrupted, the relationships are disrupted. So it's key to just, that's why they kind of have their own extraordinary renditions where they're going to kidnap people in a cult. So how do you fight those social influences? Culture a little different from culture, a little more extreme, but at its core it becomes, how do you change those values? I mean, my own answer to that is there are two ways. You need a macro intervention, so you need some kind of way to detox places that propagate bad ways of thinking, and then you need a micro intervention. So you need to if you give enough people tools so that they don't cower before bad ideas, then it's possible for them, and I know, the literature is clear on this, it's black and white, it's possible for them to talk people out of unreliable ways of reasoning. But we need to arm enough people with those. That's my book. That's what a manual for creating atheists is about.
Okay.
We need to arm enough people with those tools so that they can talk people out of their out of unreason, or you can pave the way for them to confront themselves. I think so. I mean, I've met a few people here even last night. Somebody came up to me and we talked about that, and he said it's an unbelievably liberating feeling, and it is. I mean, you're more honest with yourself, you're more honest with others, you have more genuine relationships, you don't have to lie about who you are, you can live by your own lights. You don't have to pretend anymore. You can just, just think about how unbelievably liberating it is to just be able to stop pretending. And just, I think like, wow, I was just reading this thing, can't remember where I think it was on the Friendly Atheist blog, about the people who had sworn off masturbation. And many of those people did that for religious reasons. And wow, just think about that. Like, just think about people who have, if the core reason for why you do something is an error, if that core premise upon which you're building everything else is faulty, then your life is going to be, deranged is too strong, but that you're going to be so far from how to help yourself flourish and how to help your community flourish. I'm not talking about simply masturbation. I mean, just think about, I'm certainly not. Think about, I was reading something about people who are homosexuals but have sworn off gay relationships and sex.
It's it's baffling. It's just
the starting premise is wrong. So everything this whole architectonic structure, this whole like all of the beliefs that populate that world are then corrupted. They're then, I mean, it could be true, but more than likely they'll be false.
Right.
So the question is, how do you hit that core? Anytime you hit any other belief that's other than the core belief, you're wasting your time.
Right.
So there's no point to talk to somebody who's gay about why they should not swear off sexual relationships with their partner or potential partner or would-be partner or a possible partner, unless you've hit the core problem in the first place.
Right.
You think of faith as a virus, and once and that underlying belief mechanism, the structure upon which it's formed, kind of the foundation, has these built-in. I think the building metaphor breaks down. As I say, has these built-in, planks or support structures to keep it firmly rooted. So how do you go after those support structures? And that's one of the focuses. That's a focus of my research. How do you help people to think more clearly? How do you help people to be more rational, to live by their own minds?
Thanks so much for coming in.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks so much.
And I'm sorry, you might want to give the name of your book.
Oh, A Manual for Creating Atheists.
Okay. And
it's published by Pitchstone Press. It'll be out November 1. And Michael Shermer wrote the foreword, and some of the people on the panel made contributions to the book. So if you have a loved one who's has the faith virus, or you want to turn an opportunity with somebody who's trying to convert you, don't run away from those. And the book is we went straight to paperback, no hardcover, so it's cheap.
Perfect. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time.